If you've ever spent an evening with an Amway salesman or insurance salesman, then you know exactly what it's like to watch the NBA All-Star game. Yes, it's true. There are some things that are worse than death. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView.
It's hot out there, but let's blow them off the line straight. Headline, okay.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView FanView, the February 20th, 2023 edition, brought to you by the Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident, need help? You have questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word. KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues, get yourselves some John and Henry at Temple City Auto Repair. You can find them at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. We got stuff. We got Ram stuff, NFL schedule stuff, draft stuff with corners. And I even got a brief mention of Charlie Stukes. Anytime you can mention Charlie Stukes, you know you're at the right Ram podcast. But first, it seems to be a trend right now. I don't plan for it, but first there's got to be some mea culpa stuff. On Friday, I did a breakdown of the Rams wide receivers. And one of the players I forgot to mention was Jacob Harris. I omitted him from the list, and it was an honest mistake. Currently, he's not on the active roster. In December, Jacob Harris was placed on the injury reserve with, I think, a torn pec. But, we should talk about Jacob Harris. He's 6'5", 212. People kind of liked him a little bit. I think in 2021, he was the winner of the Nelson Spruce Award. Why do I call it the Nelson Spruce Award? Well, if you remember back in 2016, Nelson Spruce had a great August. And then we never heard from him again. And so everyone loved Nelson Spruce, right? And in fact, I even heard when the Rams drafted Cooper Kupp, I heard they're trying to find the next Nelson Spruce. Now, Nelson Spruce, I don't think played a minute in the NFL. He did play some preseason. And Lance McCutcheon last year was the darling of the camp, right? Everyone wanted Lance McCutcheon. Lance McCutcheon. Get rid of Tutel. Put Lance in there. Get rid of Allen Robinson. Put Lance in there. And we saw what Lance McCutcheon is. Doesn't mean he can't develop. And same thing with Ben Skoranek. Not Ben Skoranek, but Jacob Harris. It doesn't mean he can't develop. 6'5", 212, there's a lot to develop. But right now, he's proven to only be a special teams player, where 7th round draft pick, 251 overall, Ben Skoranek has been able to contribute right off the bat. So Jacob Harris, I don't know if he's long for the Rams. This will be a really important offseason for him. So we got the mea culpa out of the way. I'm thrilled. Everybody, thank you so much. Our numbers have increased. Thank you for clicking on. I know I was told by one person, a Pepperdine alum, that I need more cowbell. That would be funny. I think I actually might have a cowbell in here. And if I can get some bump in views, I might pull the cowbell out. But one of the things I got a buzz on this weekend, someone called me, not a buzz doing this, but a phone call, was about when they had read somewhere and then they contacted me. Well, they didn't contact, just a friend. I was talking to a friend, and good friend, good football mind. And they wanted to talk about, when the NFL, not if, but when the NFL will expand to 18 games. And I'm sure there'll probably be something in the next bargaining agreement, something that comes in there. Meaning, though, that if they extend to 18 games, they're liable to add a second bye week, which means the 18 games will be played over a 20-week season. Now, 4 weeks, right? 4 weeks in a month. So you're talking over a 5-month regular season, and we haven't even gotten to the playoffs, and possibly pushing the Super Bowl back into March. And I love football. It's really true. I love football. But by the time we get to December, I'm kind of sick. I'm counting the weeks of how many, weeks do we have left in the regular season. And by the time I get to the second half of the Super Bowl, after surviving the latest halftime show insanity, I'm sick that there are only 30 minutes left. I do. I count that down. Is this the last play of the season? Is this the last minute of the season? Now, I do love the offseason because the NFL's done a good job from the February combine to NFL free agency in March to the draft in April to the OTAs and then camp. I mean, they've done a great job of extending the season. For me, football is like shrimp. Any day, all day, every day. But all shrimp is not equal, you know? There's shrimp that you really love at really great restaurants, and there's some place it's like going to the Red Lobster for seafood, right? Or going to Olive Garden for Italian food. And that's what the XFL and USFL is going to be. They're the Red Lobster of the NFL. Hey, I'm not going to turn it down, but I'm not going to go out of my way for it either, right? So I watched some XFL this week, and part of what drove me this weekend to the XFL was the inability to digest, stomach, palate, anything having to do with NBA All-Star Weekend. It's because the NBA is just unbearable. Bazillion dollar athletes, soft. The majority of them, you couldn't count on them for anything. And I got to tell you, the majority of them don't scare me. You know, I always judge somebody sometimes like, does this guy scare me, right? And Ndamukong Suh scares me. Shannon Sharp doesn't scare me. NBA players don't scare me because I think there's a lot of bark and no bite to them, and they don't have the ability to push through. That's really a sign of somebody that you want to be around. Is that do they have the ability to push through? And with all the load management stuff and everything we see in the NBA, they don't have the ability to push through. And it's not just because it's bad basketball, but what the NBA doesn't have, and you could see it in the few seconds you watch the All-Star game, is there's no passion. XFL, USFL, it's the Red Lobster, right, of shrimp, right? It's the Red Lobster of football. You know, you're not going to go out of your way for it, but when you watch it, you see guys fighting for their lives. You see them fighting for their careers, and you just don't see anything like that in the NBA. And why am I saying all this? Well, by extending the NFL season to 20 weeks and 18 games, it brings with it certain things. One, obvious, more exposure to injury. Players playing longer into a regular season with minor sprains and bruises, and they'll be opening themselves up to more serious injury. And this is the great paradox, right? We want to add more games, or the NFL owners want to add more games, and the players go right along with it, but yet we're worried about the safety of the players, right? No contact practices, limited practices, no hitting, limited time on the field. And what was all that done for? What was that done to cut down on? Injuries. But now the talk is of expanding the regular season. I'll tell you what's going to happen. This is what an 18 game schedule means. There are games that teams are just going to write off and throw away, because in a 14 game season, man, those games matter. 16 game season, those games matter. But I'm already noticing with 17 games that there are losses you can write off, right? There are losses you could write off. An 18 game schedule means there's more that you could write off and throw away. And eventually players are going to start opting out. We're going to hear what we hear in the NBA. I got to get ready, stay ready for the playoffs. That's when it really counts, right? And the NFL, as it goes down this route, is going to lose its greatest asset, its greatest selling point. And its greatest selling point is its passion. The NFL is all about urgency, limited games, no series. It's just a one-shot deal in the postseason. A game that does not allow us to get stronger or healthier, but a game that really tests us and wears us down. It's a test of fortitude for the players. Can they survive this? And now you're going to extend it even more. A game that provides a really short window, which means this is why you see a Patrick Mahomes with a high ankle sprain say, no, man, I'm going out there and he's blankety blank. You ain't pulling me from this. And you see how these players, and that's the inspiration. 99% of us are never going to play in the NFL. But you know, when there's a hard day, I think of my faith. And then I think of the other things that are important in my life. And I think about sports, and I think about watching people, the lessons we learn of watching people grind through adversity, right? Because it's in adversity we find out who we are. And football is that great lesson, especially in high school football and other levels, is that it's that great lesson. It's not about the paycheck necessarily sometimes as much as it's about, hey, who are we under adversity? Who are we when the world squeezes us? And the world's going to squeeze us, right? And the NFL and football provides a great window. It's one of the things that shows how people can fight through and endure. In the NBA, with 82 games, and you're maybe getting 65 out of its stars. And then even when those stars are playing, they're not really playing. And every franchise in the Western Hemisphere seems to make to the postseason. It is boring. I could even put up with bad basketball, which it is. Fundamentally, it's just wickedly bad. But if they cared, I've seen church basketball games that were just horrendous. I've played in church basketball games that are horrendous. But you know what? In the moment, in the competition, we cared. I've seen softball games this way. I've seen broomball games get this way. By the way, you can buy broomball on Amazon by Joe Terosian. Great broomball game story. But you don't see that in the NBA, right? And if you extend the season, by necessity, the NFL players are going to have to start holding back. You won't see the amazing things like Patrick Mahomes, what he did with his high ankle this offseason. You know what you're going to see? You're going to see load management. And those NFL games, right? The tickets, the refreshments, the parking, the swag, all that stuff, it will all cost the same so you can watch the likes of John Wolford line up under center. Because this is a getaway day, or this is a write-off game, or this is a load management game. And they're not going to lower the cost. They're going to keep feeding me the same garbage, right? And the only one in the NBA that said anything about this was Anthony Edwards recently of the Timberwolves. He just said it this weekend. It was the most refreshing thing I've heard an athlete say outside of the NFL for a long time, where he said, someone's coming to one game. They got to pay an arm and a leg to go to one game, and then the star is going to do load management. Do you really want that in the NFL? I don't want that in the NFL. If the NFL Players Union really cared about its players, they'd stop this. But like most, not all, but most unions, they're frauds, right? We know they're frauds. Now's the time, though. The NFL is so popular. The Players Union at the next bargaining agreement, the next contract, should hold the line, even threaten to go on strike to get this back to a 16-game season. 17 is ridiculous. 18 is too much. Extending it 20 weeks is too long. And you're going to lose the urgency. You're going to lose the passion. And that is something the NBA, not the NBA, the NFL really needs to think about. And its players need to think about it. And they need to fire their union reps that would push this through. They have to be thinking in terms of what's good for them going forward. They're going to get beaten up. And they're also going to lose their fan base because people after a while are going to get sick of paying those prices to go watch John Wolford play quarterback, or Josh Johnson play quarterback, right? Or Mike White play quarterback, or Teddy Bridgewater to play quarterback. No, they want to see the stars. And as they extend the season, it might not happen with this generation, but it'll happen with the next generation. It's like, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out. But they won't. I don't think they won't. And I fear for the NFL in that regard. But you know what? Everyone's time comes and goes. And if the NFL fails to reach the needs of its fan base, maybe something else will come along. And that's not a bad thing. It's always good to have competition. All right, who am I? I've been talking a lot right now. I am Joe Terosian. I was a sports writer for 21 years. I've also been a pastor for 34 years. I pastor a small church in Burbank, which you can check out. You can check out in person at Burbank and 505 South 6th Street in Burbank, but you could also check it out at Burbank Faith Virtual right here on YouTube. We have a channel, and you can check our messages. We do a daily good morning devotional, and then I'm live on Thursdays, and I'm live on Sundays right here. Hit like, hit the subscribe button. You can check me out there. I'm also a writer. After I stop sports writing, I supplement my income by doing RamView, and I supplement my income by writing books, and my books can be found on Amazon.com. Just type in Joe Terosian, JoTorosin, and you can go to my website, JoeTerosian.com. That'll help you out too. I've written a couple of football novels, some dystopian Christian, and you can go check them out. I think that's the commercial. I'm looking at my board here. It says that is the commercial. Okay. I keep reading stuff. This one I read. This one wasn't sent to me. I keep reading stuff about the Rams possibly releasing center Brian Allen to save cap space. One, I think if they cut him, I think they only save a couple of rocks, which is millions, 2 million maybe. The one I'm arguing for probably is a more likely candidate is Tyler Higbee. I think the Rams need an upgrade there at tight end, and he's kind of long in the tooth. But what people are failing to realize is the Rams like Brian Allen, right? He struggled terribly. I think he started 9 games in 2019. He was a disaster. And he got hurt. He didn't play a down in 2020. And then he came back in 2021, and the Rams won a Super Bowl with him. And he was graded out as one of the top centers in the league. But here's the interesting story about Brian Allen is that, he didn't play at all in 2020. He left a bad taste. And anybody who was a Ram fan, you knew you didn't want to watch Brian Allen play center in 2021, right? But the team had serious salary cap issues at the end of 2020, and they didn't offer. And they were also looking to upgrade. Austin Blythe was a decent center, but he wasn't going to change the world for you. And we've seen that. Austin Blythe has bounced around. I believe he was the Seattle Seahawks starting center this year, and he was ranked pretty low in the thing. His time has come. Rams got some good clicks out of Austin Blythe, but when Austin Blythe left as a free agent, he actually went to the Chiefs. The Rams didn't bring in another free agent center. We were wondering, what are they going to do? I think I was opining like, hey, make a deal for Rodney Hudson or something. I don't know. And then they didn't even draft a center because they took Tutu Atwell. Remember? I think you remember, right? They didn't draft Creed Humphrey, the greatest Ram of all time. At least I'm getting the impression he's the greatest Ram of all time because everyone keeps screaming, right, that he's the greatest Ram of all time, and he's never played for the Rams. But to our shock and horror of anybody that was paying attention, the Rams decided, first it was Austin Corbett was going to move from right guard to center, and that only lasted, I think, 1 OTA or something, and then they were right back. They went with Brian Allen, and guess what? In spite of all the doubt we all had, anyone that was paying attention, the Rams fans had doubts. Brian Allen produced, and guess what? The Rams won a Super Bowl. Now, this isn't the Jeff Fisher era where you could call their Rams decisions with Braille, right? You knew what they would do all the time. There was nothing creative about the Rams during the Fisher era, but it's different now. Could the Rams move on? Could the Rams actually make a move on Brian Allen? Yeah, I think they could. It's possible. But think about this. Who replaces Brian Allen, right? Coleman Shelton? Coleman Shelton's your starting right guard at the moment. And he's very competent at center, but he's a great guy that I don't even know if I view Coleman Shelton as a longtime starter. I view Coleman Shelton as kind of a depth piece, right? Flexible. You can move him to center or guard and get some good clicks out of him. Now, also as a Ram fan, getting rid of Brian Allen or going along with what these articles are, they're just kind of throwing mud against the wall and seeing what sticks. Are you having some fantasy that the Rams are going to overcome the great sin of not drafting Creed Humphrey and find a plug-and-play center in the draft, right? Everyone's in love with Cody Mock and some of these other guys. And, that would be great if they did find one, but, it's rare that you go and find a plug-and-play center. Yeah, the Rams whiffed by not taking Creed Humphrey. We know that. But so did every other team in the NFL because he wasn't drafted till the end of the first round at number 60, at the second round at number 63. So let the Creed Humphrey stuff go. And just because there might be another center available at number 36, it doesn't mean he's Creed Humphrey, okay? And you just need to be slow your roll on that and find that money someplace else. Renegotiate these contracts to some of the stars, restructure them, and so you can get under the cap. But really, dumping your starting center who was your starting center for a Super Bowl, dumping him to save a couple mil, I really don't know if that's feasible. You could do that and kick Tyler Higbee to the curb, right? To paraphrase Rick Pitino back in the late 90s when he was struggling at the Celtics, right? But I'm going to paraphrase Rick Pitino for the present-day Rams. Hey, Ken Iman, Rich Saul, and Doug Smith aren't coming in through that door, right? You got Brian Allen. you should be happy with Brian Allen. And if you could find somebody at 69 or further down, the Rams, by the time all the comp picks are settled, are going to have 10 draft picks. And you have to ask yourself this: do you want your 35-year-old quarterback, Matthew Stafford, with 14 seasons of NFL pounding, right, on that body? 12 of those suffered in Detroit. I mean, that makes him like he's played 20 seasons in the NFL, double his time in time and a half over there in Detroit. Do you really want him taking snaps behind a rookie center? Keep Allen, and if he gets hurt, you have a competent backup in Coleman Shelton. Draft somebody and develop them, but don't be so hot to just take something that someone's posted and think, yeah, let's get rid of Brian Allen. That's a great idea. We'll save money. Chances are you're not going to find another Creed Humphrey at number 36. All right. I'm Joe Terosian, and this is RamView, brought to you by Kistler Law. If you need some help and you're in an auto accident, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. You got questions after an auto accident, call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990, KistlerLawFirm.com. They've been doing it all for you since 92. Okay, so we didn't talk about cornerbacks yet, and that's what we said we were going to talk about on Friday, so we moved it to Monday. So we're going to talk about cornerbacks and then see where they land in the latest mock draft. Okay, we've been looking at a mock draft every day. As I've shared, mock drafts are like elbows. Everybody has two, right? And you can go on any simulator and you can make your own mock draft. You can just type in mock draft, 2-round mock draft, and you're going to find something, right? And so I try to find one every day. And I'm focusing today on corners. We're going to talk about the cornerbacks in the Rams room that they have now, and then who might be available in the draft. And when you say Ram cornerbacks to me, I say Pat Thomas and Rod Perry, right? I'll also say Leroy Irvin. We got great clicks out of Jerry Gray too. I'll buy that one too. But Pat Thomas and Rod Perry, Pat Thomas being my favorite. And also break me off some Charlie Stukes as I was looking at that today. Pat Thomas and Rod Perry played in a different era, but both ran about 5'9". Leroy Irvin had some decent size, but really, honestly, Charlie Stukes, who came to the Rams in 73, he had played for about 5 seasons with the Colts, won a Super Bowl with the Colts. Actually, I think he appeared in 2 Super Bowls with the Colts. And Maryland East Shore, he was on their Super Bowl team, and then he got dealt in the summer of 73, he got dealt to the Vikings. And then at the end of the summer of 73, in August, he was dealt to the Rams for a 5th-round pick. And Stukes gave the Rams 2 solid years, had a knee injury in 75, and then he was cut, couldn't make the team in 76. Different era then. But Stukes ran 6'3", 212. Gotta love a cornerback that could play at 6'3", 212. He'd probably be a safety today, box safety, let alone that. But Charlie Stukes was one of my favorite Ram cornerbacks. Speaking of favorite Ram cornerbacks, let's look at the room right now. Of course, it begins and ends with Jalen Ramsey. He runs 6'1", 208, and he runs like the wind. And the great thing about Jalen Ramsey, which I'll never understand when people bag on Jalen Ramsey, is Jalen Ramsey is somebody that everyone's like, oh, we got to cut him and save salary cap money, or we got to trade him and get draft picks. And you're forgetting Jalen Ramsey is a baller. When that season ended last year, when by midseason, when everything was in the dumpster, Jalen Ramsey, the star cornerback for the Rams, kept going out there and kept playing every down as if the playoffs were on the line. I love Jalen Ramsey, and he's a tackler, and he can guard in the slot. He can guard in the boundary. He can play in the box. He can go on the edge. There's so many things you can do. And that's one of my problems with the Rams defense is I really think Jalen Ramsey should be their rover back, their what Michigan used to call him, their Wolfman. Used to be the guy that he can do whatever he wants, any place on the field, because he's that kind of a player. And so I don't view the Rams taking the 2022 season or the 2023 season seriously if there's anything about Jalen Ramsey moving on. A move on Jalen Ramsey, to me, unless you get something back absolutely amazing, to me just tells me the Rams are punting and beginning their rebuild. So we're good with Jalen Ramsey. Darian Kendrick. comes in at 6 foot 190. He was taken 213 overall last draft, 6th round. And he was the guy that was at Georgia and then got moved around a little bit because he got into some trouble. And people thought if he didn't have some personal issues, he might have come higher in the draft. Well, he was forced into the action by week 3, played 483 snaps, almost exclusively at boundary, wide corner. And I'm going to do a show where we talk about some of these terms: boundary corner, slot corner, right? Box safety and everything. Boundary corner is the guy that lines up wide corner. Okay. And that's where Darian Kendrick lined up nearly exclusively. And he had a lot of ups. He had some ups, but he had a lot of downs. The nice thing about Darian Kendrick is he's competitive, and I think he could develop. Kobe Durant did develop, had a nice season. 4th round, 142nd overall in last year's draft. He goes 5'11", 180. He played 281, played 281 snaps, played a lot of slot corner. Slot corner is different. Boundary, you've got the boundary behind you on your side. Slot corner, you're kind of, it's a little more fluid. And he played well. He made a better impression than Darian Kendrick did. And Kobe Durant is somebody, again, that could develop. The other Ram player on the roster that's a draft pick that we are kind of curious about is Robert Rochelle. Robert Rochelle is 6'2", 195. He was taken in the 4th round, 131st overall in the 2021 draft. And in that season, he played 233 snaps. In fact, there was a time there where it was looking like, before he got hurt, that he was going to unseat Darius Williams for that other cornerback spot opposite Ramsey. And then he got hurt. Last season, the Rams totally Terrell Burgessed him. And what I mean by that is Terrell Burgess, in his second or rookie year, got snaps. And it looked like, oh, okay, Terrell Burgess is the next guy. And then it seemed like only time you saw Terrell Burgess was on special teams. And last year, Robert Rochelle, after playing significant time in 2021, played 27 defensive snaps. He was exclusively a special team player. And so you're wondering where they went south on Robert Rochelle, where they moved Darian Kendrick, Kobe Durant, Grant Haley, Troy Hill. Everyone was ahead of him in line, and Robert Rochelle hardly got a sniff on the field this year on defense. Now, he is a boundary corner, but we'll see, right? It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Nopes on the roster, I call these guys nopes, is that if they're playing, the season's in real danger. Grant Haley, 5'9", 190. He's been around the Rams for a while. Cut, released, practice squad, cut, released, practice squad. He played 3 games, none after week 5, had 129 snaps. He is a slot corner, and he's competitive. But I don't think he has the skills to play much beyond a special teamer. And then there's a guy you're going to see on the roster, Sean Jolly, spent some time in the Browns camp. He's an undrafted free agent, 5'9", 175 out of Appalachian State. I don't think he's in any way near going to make anything impressive on this roster. The nopes, the other ones that keep going forward because they're free agents. Troy Hill, 5'11", 180. He played 700 snaps. He graded slightly above average, 54 out of 118 corners. He plays mostly the boundary. He's also turning 32 this August, and he's a free agent. I don't want to pay him any money. Why would you cut your starting center to save a few bucks and then re-sign Troy Hill, who is very, very, very pedestrian at this point in his career? Also a free agent is David Long Jr., 5'11", 196. The Rams drafted him 3rd round, 79th overall in 2019, and played 100 snaps in 2019, played 100 snaps in 2020, and he played 517 in the Super Bowl year. But he had his struggles, right? He was in and out of the lineup. He's almost exclusively a boundary corner. He played 287 snaps last year, and he's never graded out well. He's just never developed, considering where he's drafted. And it's hard to call a 3rd rounder a bust, but in the Rams scheme of things, he's a 3rd rounder who's a bust. And I think he's leaving as a free agent. I don't see the Rams bringing him back. And if somebody wants to sign him, I don't think they're going to. But if they do, maybe we get a 7th round comp pick for him. I doubt it. The latest mock draft, and we've been doing these, looking these, We've identified the Rams need edge, tight end, corner, running back, maybe wide receiver, O-line, although I've made the argument the O-line shouldn't be taken at 36, right? And as I said, mock drafts are like elbows. Everybody has two. But what I wanted to do with this latest mock draft that I looked at, I wanted to see where the cornerbacks went. And so I looked at the corners and who were on the big boards that you're seeing, cornerbacks that are going to be drafted. And 8 cornerbacks were taken in the first 2 rounds. None by the Rams, okay? Going in the first round was Illinois CB, Devon Weatherspoon, Christian Gonzalez of Oregon, Joey Porter Jr., yeah, he's that Joey Porter's son, Penn State, and Deontay Banks, Maryland, who's 6'2", 205. I really like his size, and he's a boundary guy. And but those guys are all projected first rounds. Now, little tangent there. This mock draft had the Rams taking TCU guard Steve Avila at number 36. Just wanted to throw that out there. I'm happy to admit that not everyone thinks like me, and I could be wrong. I just wouldn't draft unless I was absolutely certain. I wouldn't draft an offensive lineman at number 36. I think the Rams have other needs. But coming in, the 4 cornerbacks that were drafted after the number 36 position, these are all guys that could end up in a Ram uniform. 4 of them were drafted in the second round. Emmanuel Forbes, Mississippi State. He's 6 foot, 180. He's a boundary corner, but he played an offense and a defense similar to the Rams, in a soft zone, but he did show some ability to play press. I like his size. I like a 6 foot, 180 guy. Tyreek Stevenson, Miami, another boundary guy. He goes 6 foot, 214. Love that size. Played some slot, but he's not a terrific athlete. A lot of people think that he's higher on the board because he went to Miami. Tyreek Stevenson. Garrett, I didn't, man. He goes 6 foot, 189. And then Trevius Hodges Tomlinson out of TCU, 5'9", 180. And he's not very good in press. So he is a soft zone guy who would probably excel in the Rams system, but he's built like a slot corner. So, wow, we hit the 30-minute mark. I got that stuff out, and cool. We are looking, we will let you know where we'll be broadcasting from on Wednesday. But thank you so much for clicking on. Please leave your comments, leave your complaints, and everything. We talk Ram football, and always as Ram fans, you got a great organization right now compared to what it used to be. Don't take the low-hanging fruit that the media offers. Make them do some work, and before you subscribe to any of their opinions, because it's real easy to say, cut Jalen Ramsey, release Brian Allen. Let's do all these things, as opposed to really studying it. And we try to do our best here, but all the information is out there if we just want to look at it and search it out. And so you don't have to accept just basic pundit pap. All right, cool. I'm Joe Terosian. Be sure to check out our sponsors. Be sure to check us out. Be sure to hit like and subscribe. God bless. Take care, and we will see you on Wednesday.